Are you a nonprofit or business in need of more funding? Overwhelmed by the search of potential funders and not seeing the results you would like? I am Michelle Rollins, veteran, military spouse, a grant writer expert and fundraising professional. I have transformed ideas to real-life transformations in many nonprofits and businesses. Let me transform your ideas to a whole new level. Reach out today for a consultation. Find me at Michelle Rollins LinkedIn and Facebook, and at Michelle Rollins Grants on YouTube. You are on Mike King Biz Media Radio, heard on ESPN Richmond 106.1 FM, and I am your fundraising and grant host, owner of M. Rollins Enterprises LLC, and thank you for tuning in today. Today I have a great segment. It's called Chasing More Than the Grant Money. Yes, that's right. We're going to chase more today than the money. And yes, I know we all like money. We all like to get funded for our organizations and businesses, but there has to be more than just chasing the money. You have to be chasing the joy, chasing the impact. And today I wanted to focus on that a little bit. So I get a lot of calls all the time, a lot of referrals. Say, somebody mentioned your name, they dropped your name, we really need a grant writer, I have a new organization, and we need this funding. And I heard about this foundation, I just don't have the time and I don't know where to start. Or we've been around for a couple years, but we've never written a grant. Those are kind of the similar calls that I get on a daily basis. Well, over time, I've learned that those calls don't even scratch the surface of the internal problems of the organization. Unfortunately, grant money isn't the solution necessarily to the organization problem. I have learned that educating potential clients, previous clients, and current clients is a really big part of what I do with my business. So, as a grant writer and fundraising professional, there are two different things. And I have to really dissect what the problem is when I talk to potentials. So one of those things is what are their needs? What are they really looking for? Do they have continuous sponsors and donors coming in regularly on a day-to-day basis in their organization? Do they already have grants coming in? How long has their organization been going? When was it founded? How many staff members do they have? What is the why to their organization? Well, I usually have to educate about the difference between fundraising and grants, the types of grants, and then what the grant process actually looks like for grants. And grant processes vary throughout the types of grants that you apply for or that you're interested in applying for. And so a lot of times, if I get those calls, I usually find out that they do not have like a grant calendar or a grant program. I actually used to work for a multi-million-dollar nonprofit that spent a lot of time on their fundraising end. I mean, I was their developer, so I spent a lot of time, the fundraising, talking to the donors, taking the time for the phone calls, talking to the folks that we were serving. But when it came to grants, it was delegated among the team. And even larger nonprofits may still have a very small full-time staff and have quite a few part-time staff members. And those grants are spread among all of them. Even volunteers get the duties of writing grants. I mean, I served on a board for over 10 years, and my role was not only for the fundraising to be the lead in that, but also find grant opportunities. And then the one grant that we got when I came in the door, I was able to get considerably big chunks of money that we were not getting when I first walked in the door. And it's really not necessarily about chasing the money and sitting down and having those board meetings and sitting down with the staff and sitting down as a volunteer about, okay, show me the money, like Jerry Maguire. It's not about that. It is about really what is the impact. When I talk to potential grantees about a grant maybe my clients have found and they want to pursue, or maybe even their staff wants to pursue and they send it to me, or I have found the grantees, it's really important to reach out, connect, introduce myself and the organization I'm representing, and connecting them with the folks that I'm representing, because they need to get a feel for that mission, that organization, and the impact it's having in the communities that they serve. It's not necessarily about show me the money. So when I get these calls, I will first tell them, okay, this is the good part and this is the bad part. Which one do you want to know first? A lot of times I'll have to tell them, okay, I understand you need a grant writer, but it sounds like you also need this. And I will say, okay, how much are you willing to spend to have me come on board and help you? And I try to be really fair with my rates. I really think about the budgets that these nonprofits have and where they are and their lifespan of their organization. And also if it aligns with my purpose and mission of my business, my LLC. And it's really, really important that I feel like it's a good match. Again, I get calls all the time, and it's, you know, I'm great at what I do. I love what I do. I love having an impact and sprinkling joy and growing together and building our communities up. But it's really, really important to know that they align and they serve a similar purpose that I do with my business and their organization. So again, I not only serve our military, our first responders, and educational nonprofits, but for food insecurities are also organizations that I have served, and I have loved every minute of serving those organizations. And faith-based, I love serving my faith-based organizations. Again, they're some of my best clients. And I'm willing to sit down and talk to other organizations. And again, I talk to folks that are all over, from Utah to Colorado, even all the way up to New York City. And I represent organizations that go from, you know, the small mom and pop organizations that are pretty much all volunteers that are just kind of getting bigger, that might have started off with a great and brilliant idea, and then they became a nonprofit and they need some help because they're growing and they don't know where to go and what their next step is. And then I also represent mid-sized organizations. I have a client that is over 200 employees, and I am there so the person in charge can devote their time into campaigns, and it makes total sense. So with every client, I treat them fairly. I treat them with excellence. I mean, I believe in excellent customer care, and I communicate effectively throughout all my clients throughout the months when I work for them. And one thing I really do press upon, I'm very big about telling them up front that, okay, there needs to be research. There needs to be research and education, and we're going to probably have to build a program here. Even some of the bigger organizations I have or continue to represent need programs. Believe it or not, they're getting most of their money from amazing donors. It's just mind-blowing because donors are great, especially if they follow kind of the rule of thumb of fundraising where every year they give more, and there's so many fundraising rules with that, and they do. I mean, some organizations I've represented, they give generously, and grants aren't necessarily a priority, but it's when you notice that your programs are serving counties and you have people on your board that are in different states, or better yet, you are a chapter from the national level and you qualify for bigger money, or you are getting federal money, which federal grants are a different beast than private grants, private foundation grants. And it's really important that you communicate and you express to your team and to your consultant of what your needs are. So when I bring on a new client and I feel that they're a good match, I'll say, okay, so we need to devote a good month or 2 months on research, and then we will continue building from that. So I'll do research. I'll provide a huge list. I spend a lot of time on whatever that business, that organization, and myself did on a contract. And then we'll come back after that time and we'll discuss how they're eligible and if they're competitive enough. And we'll go through questions that I'll discuss with them, like, are you eligible for this grant? Are you competitive to the other folks that are also you'll be competing with? Budgets. a budget is really, really important to grants. So all the nonprofits that I represent have a board member that is either the accountant, a treasurer, or they have a paid person that is their accountant. And it's really, really important that I have access to those budgets. And usually I have a person in the organization I report to on my contract, and they will supply me with the budgets that are needed. And what I do is I go through that budget, and either it's for that program we're going to apply for, or maybe it's for the overall programs of the whole entire mission. But it's really important that that budget is kind of available during that grant time, or we have planned on having that grant available. So for instance, right now I have one client that we made it to a certain level for a pretty decent amount of money for a foundation, and they are requesting our new budget. And right now, all that's available is last year's budget, but he's working on the new budget. So I'm waiting patiently for that budget, and I'm working with that grantee to make sure that we're still eligible, kind of getting ready to turn that budget in because they need that budget. And it's really important, though, to have that budget ready when you apply for grants. But again, I represent mom and pop size organizations, and then I represent bigger organizations. And a lot of the clients I've had for a couple years know that I need, especially if I do their fundraising and more than their grant writing, depending what services they need, they have their new sponsorship level forms. They have their new like they did their end of the year letter, and they're getting ready to give me all of their events for the year. They gave that to me before the holiday season started, and they gave me everything that I needed. Grants are the same way. Before the holiday season, I went in with new grant programs, and we went over what we were going to focus on, what we were going to really focus on for the year. I have some clients that we are focusing on some big grants throughout the year that we got to make sure we're ready. And then I have some that we're just focusing on the grant program that I created a couple years ago, where we want to focus on each quarter. And we want to kind of tackle the biggest opportunities that they have available, that we have really good chances of getting some funding. So it's really, really important to answer these questions when you go to apply for a grant, or if you see a grant that somebody said, hey, I think you would be a great person for this, it would be a great potential for your organization, a grant money to get. You got to make sure that you're eligible for that. And you got to know when you bring on a grant writer that's not in-house, that you know, okay, do you need just some nonprofit coaching? I mean, I've coached executive directors on the ins and outs to do better with their fundraising, their board of director roles, as well as their grants, where the directions to go, how to do fundraisers. I've done that. And then for creating grant programs, I just went into that for a few minutes. You got to make sure that you have a good grant program. And if you don't, then you definitely want to reach out to me. That takes time, and the return could take years. I mean, it takes time to create such a great program and continue building on that, but the longevity really speaks for itself. Then you have the grant writing. You just need somebody to come in and say, okay, I need to apply for this grant. Can you help me with this? And first I need to look at, do you really qualify for this grant? Yes, it takes time. I need to do the research behind it, and then we need to find out if we have enough time to write it. And not just grant writing itself, writing the proposal, but then you got the grant management. The grant management is the whole entire process, which could take over about a year. Some grants start from January and you don't see the award till 12 months later. And then you have to do the post-grant reports. So that's a whole different animal. I also offer that. But it's really going back down to the educating and the networking opportunities that I also provide. And not really chasing the money, but chasing the impact. And I'm really about the education and the networking, the connecting, building relationships in the long run. So again, today's segment is about not chasing the grant money, but chasing the joy and the impact. So there's always room to grow. So if your organization needs to grow, create better strategy to have a bigger impact, then reach out to me today.